Hey everybody, welcome back to Late Lot Build. I'm here with my wife, Leslie, and so today's episode is going to be what, sweetheart?
We're going to talk about the pros and cons of an ICF house. We've lived in our home now for about a year. If you haven't been with the channel, welcome. We've been working on building this home for about 2 years. And we moved in last April, and so we're here pretty much every weekend and enjoying it.
Yeah, so we started the build, if you guys haven't seen the other episodes, so we had a gentleman build pretty much what is the shell of the house, and it's ICF. So we had pretty much a concrete shell. We asked him to put the windows in and the doors so that we could be somewhat dried in. We didn't have the garage door, but we were able to put all the rest of the doors. And then I put in the garage door so then we could have pretty much a secure watertight house at that time. So from there, it was all you and I.
We've done everything else ourselves, so you feel free to look back through the episodes. There's an episode on pretty much everything from drywall to tile to plumbing to ERV to HVAC, so it's all there. But today we really wanted to talk about what we love about living in an ICF home. And there are very few cons, but we can talk about, some of the differences maybe between living in a home that is ICF and a standard built home. And most of the time we're going to be talking about, I call them stick built homes.
Yep.
It's like the traditional build.
Yep.
And that will get us right into our pros, because we kind of quizzed each other before the video what we thought was our favorite thing about the home. And for me, it's the strength. So this is a really strong house. It is 8 inches of concrete on every wall.
Yep.
And we also have the concrete roof. And so we have 14 inches of concrete above us. So super strong. As somebody that's been through tornadoes, both of us grew up in Oklahoma. We've lived in Arkansas. Now we live in Missouri. Tornadoes are a real threat. And, we've seen some of the devastation that happens to a home when it's hit by, those either straight line winds or by a tornado. So I know this home's not going anywhere.
No, we might blow out one of the windows or something like that we'll have to replace, but this thing is going to be here for a very, very long time.
Right.
The roof itself, we calculated, it's 186,000 pounds of concrete.
It's a lot of concrete.
Can you imagine trying to hold up 186,000 pounds of concrete with wood? I mean, it would be just terrifying.
Right, which is one of the other pros that you brought up, which is we really don't have a need for load-bearing walls.
No, we don't. We have a wall in the middle that is the fourth wall of the garage because we have a suspended garage floor. And so you'll need all 4 walls for that to hold that up. The other wall that it would be load-bearing would be the one that is here by the for the stairs, right? And so then that's where all the floor joists dive into that section. But rather than that, every other wall is non-load bearing. You could literally, and you could probably see it from the videos before we started building all the interior walls. You could see all the way through this house, right? All 48 feet of it.
And we were able to do the suspended garage floor, which is what you were talking about. We have a whole video about that as well.
Yes.
But building in concrete allowed us to do structurally, in my opinion, interesting things like having concrete roof and suspended garage floor.
If you ever wanted to put another floor on this house, you didn't have to worry about it. When we decided to go from a pitched roof to a flat roof, we didn't have to worry about the walls because they're concrete walls, right? You didn't have to do the calculations like, of course it'll hold it up, right? Concrete in a compressive manner is, I don't know anything that's even stronger than that. I mean, the tallest building in the world is built out of concrete.
Yep,
so,
that's right. In Dubai.
If that tells you anything
That's
about
very true.
The uniqueness of concrete, I love it.
One of the things that you brought up was how quiet the house is.
I love it. I don't know if the microphone will pick it up, but we are using just the camera phone. It is just us. There's no boom mic or anything. It is so quiet. You can actually hear the dryer running downstairs right now. It's really neat. You don't hear if the wind blows. If it rains hard, you rarely hear it.
Rarely, especially with the concrete roof.
Yeah. it is so unbelievably quiet and peaceful in here.
Right. And we live in a pretty serene place. I mean, we are out in the country, but I can imagine in the city, if you were in a really, bustling, busy
Great point.
area,
Yes.
this would be a refuge.
Yes, absolutely. After living in this house for a year, I just wish we would have done this 20 years ago.
Yeah, you'll see. We have very few cons about living in the ICF home. We really love it.
Yeah.
That brings me to one of my favorites, which was this house is very efficient.
It is so unbelievably efficient. So if you go back and look at the other episodes, we used the system called Mr. Cool. And the reason we picked that is because it was DIY. I was able to, I don't have any background in HVAC besides watching the guys actually put it in and in my history with construction. So I did it myself. And we have 3 heads in 1 outdoor unit that works all together. And guys, it is amazing. It takes absolutely minimal amounts of energy to create the heat or to create the cooling, because let's face it, it is so well insulated, whatever you do create doesn't leave. And so that to me is just wonderful. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, the ICF is 2 inches of the polystyrene and then 8 inches of concrete and then another 2 inches. And so you're living in the equivalent of an igloo cooler.
It really is.
So when it's warm, it stays warm. When it's cool in here, it stays cool. And we just don't have, our bills are amazing. I'll put in a couple of our most recent bills. We don't live here full time. That is true. We're only here on the weekends, but our HVAC runs all the time.
I just don't turn it off.
There's no reason to not have it running.
Absolutely.
Our refrigerator's running. All of our TVs are plugged in. I mean, we don't, it's literally just us not here walking around the house. But last month, our bill was $79, and we're total electric.
Yep.
So that's hot water heater, that's HVAC, that's, obviously everything that lives on electric.
Yeah.
We don't have propane, we don't have natural gas,
Nope.
we don't have anything else. It's just...
Now, we have not hooked up the radiant floor heating, and so that might, we'll see. But, if you look back on the other videos, we have insulation under the concrete floor.
Right.
So I have this feeling that there will be a cost to get the temperature of the concrete up, but then to hold it at that, especially when it's cold outside.
I'm always interested.
Yeah.
What size is it, and what are you trying to heat and cool and all of that. So 1,800 square feet, $79. The month before was $71.
But you have to remember, the caveat in there is that how much is the service fee?
That's true. That's with a $40 service fee. So we're
just to have it on. So we're only actually using what,
$30 to $40 worth
so
of
it's
actual
like
electric.
$1 a day.
Yeah.
Right? If you could break it down to maybe $1.25 or $1.05.
And that's compared to our traditional built home, which is our other home, where we're currently paying $300 a month between electric and gas.
Yep.
So much more expensive in the other home for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That brings us also to being comfortable, which was one of your pros.
I love it. Okay, so here is what I've found out. With the mini splits, we're using electric, and so we don't have the gas heater like we do at our current house, right? And so with natural gas, where it is super hot, which literally removes all of the humidity in the air, and the air in the winter gets so unbelievable dry. Here, it doesn't, because the heater is not so hot. It doesn't have to keep pushing so much hot air, because you're losing so much air, warm temperature in the room. So therefore, the humidity in here, they use a fraction of the amount of moisturizer, like when you get out of the shower. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely, yeah. Like we don't really lather on the lotion like you have to in the winter typically. My hair, doesn't feel dry.
Yeah.
And we're on well water, which is, probably pretty mineral rich in this area. hard water is probably what we have. But yeah, and I'll show you guys the humidity, moisture levels too. That could be a con if you're not ready for it. In ICF homes, I knew this before we started building because I watched a video. You do need a dehumidifier in most cases when a home is new because of that concrete and it's curing out.
Well, and the other one is if you have us, and then with our son, there's 3 of us in the house, and when you do breathe, right, you do breathe moisture into the air. If you have a family of 5 or whatever, then you are and you're cooking and you're doing your clothes, and you still have the ERV to circulate it, but you're continually adding moisture in there. Of course, in the summer with the air conditioner running, then with the condensate, then it pulls the moisture out. We don't have that problem. But in the winter, then we do find that the moisture does get above 50%, and so we turn on the the dehumidifier for 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I mean and when the house was new, we would keep the dehumidifier running quite a bit.
Yeah.
When we were gone, because as the concrete's curing out, it's just creating a lot of moisture. But never did we have mold, mildew.
No.
Nothing at that level.
No, it was nothing. It's just that you could tell when you walked in from outside to inside. You're like, oh, it feels completely different.
Yeah.
But now it seems like it's getting less and less.
It is.
Now that we've, that we're a year into this. So.
Right. Yeah. You can tell the house is becoming less humid. That said, we still stay between 50, 55, which is fantastic. I mean, that's where you want your house to be at that kind of humidity level.
You don't get nosebleeds. You don't. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Our other house is probably 17. Probably terrible.
Yeah, and you don't, you feel that you don't have the nasally or the coughing or from that super dry air. You feel like you have to keep drinking a bunch of water or whatever. It just does not happen in this house.
Comfortable.
And you don't realize it until you stay. Like we stay a weekend here, and then we'll go home, and you're like, man, I'm so thirsty. And it's just a wild difference. You don't recognize it until you actually walk through it.
Yeah. Okay, so. One thing that I thought of when we were brainstorming is that we actually have twice as many places to hang cabinets, pictures, and all of that from than a traditional stick-built home.
Yes, very good point. So the way our blocks were designed is that the strip, which is it's a high what do you call it, like a high tensile plastic that goes through there. And so it's every 8 inches versus every 16 inches. So when we installed these cabinets, there were cleats that go along the wall. Well, I never worried about having to put blocking in for these cabinets for have them to hang anything on, because the likelihood of hitting at least 2 points on a 30-inch cabinet with every 8 inches, very easy, right? 16 inch, you're like, well, I don't know, we might just catch the edge of it, or we might not catch it. And so, therefore, never worried about blocking. The only blocking that we put in were for the bathroom vanities, just because they had the point loads in those corners. And so, it was very easy. I just, downloaded the owner's manual and you figured it out. It's like, okay, well, I just need blocking here. But anything for, hanging wall, pictures, the television, anything like that, I did not worry about blocking because it was 8 inches, right? And so, but that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I like the outside of it too, because when we put that metal siding on, to have the connection points every 8 inches, so we got close around the windows. Right. You didn't have to worry about the panels, because of the way the panels are connected. Having a connection point every 8 inches was very nice. It also makes those panels not oil can, because instead of every 16,
you can connect them every
8. And so they lay down. That's why they lay down so perfect, is that your connection points were twice as many, right? On a given 40-foot run or 30-foot run on some of those that were really, really long. So
you guys can tell we really love this home, but let's go ahead and cover some of the things that, we're calling them cons, but honestly, these are just things to think about and things that may annoy or bug or bother or, affect other people, or maybe if you're not ready for them, you may go, what is happening? Okay. So the first con that I thought of is that it can be hard to find ICF builders. This is what you guys are telling us.
Yes, we were very fortunate. The gentleman that did our work here he'd been in business for
20 years building ICF.
20, something like that. So we were able to stand on his shoulders of the mistakes or growing pains or whatever you would call that, right? His refinement of his craft. And so we were a benefactor of that. And so the door openings and the layout and how we had, it's a monolithic pour from the wall to the, to the footer. Fascinating. Still have yet to see that anywhere else.
Pour,
the monolithic pour, because usually, you pour your footer and then it's either a keyway or rebar, and then it goes on top of that. But this, to make it, one pour where you don't have to worry about that other spot where water can come in. I mean, that's just wonderful, great ideas. But we were very fortunate to have him here in our backyard.
And I know it's hard to find ICF builders. A lot of you all are telling us that. The other thing that I would say that kind of goes hand in hand with that is that ICF is a building product that undergoes a lot of innovation.
Yes.
And it seems like it's constantly being reimagined, re-envisioned. Even for us, between the home that David built prior to us to our home, they had made the blocking different for the windows and doors.
Yep.
So instead of him having to use wood blocking, now there were the ICF blocks that they could use in the windows.
Which was great because it all goes back to that thermal expanse from indoor to outdoor, right? And so instead of having a piece of wood that could transfer the thermal load from in to out or out to in, however you want to look at it, then now it was foam, right? It was styrofoam.
Right.
And so that's just one more item that they had refined and made it better, and we were a benefactor of that.
That said, also with building, when we were building, this was not the case, but in maybe a traditional market where we don't have the crazy spikes in demand and supply issues that we were having post-pandemic, ICF's usually about 5% more expensive. Now, we would argue you're going to see that savings in efficiency down the road and in strength. I mean, to me, it's a better product. Why wouldn't you pay 5% more for a better built product?
You might front load your costs there, but my gosh, if you ever have a storm or you have any problem settling, right? Like our house is literally all the way around, and the foundation was poured at once.
Right.
So there's no twisting or turning or settling or any problems for our house. That's what we do. We don't have any cracks anywhere, right? Nothing has settled.
No, that's true. That's very
it's so unbelievably strong.
Right.
And so, yes, it cost a little bit more on the front end, but the back end of your lower utility bills, I mean, my gosh, I think we would have already met that.
For sure. And I mean, a Seiko costs less than a Rolex, but a Rolex is a much better watch.
It's true. I mean, you get what you do kind of, in this case, you really do get what you pay for. We happened to start right when the pandemic hit, and then we watched those lumber prices just explode.
Like crazy.
Concrete, it went up a little bit, but it just didn't, because there wasn't such a draw on concrete like there was for wood. And we just didn't see it. So therefore, at the time that we built, it was actually noticeably less expensive to build with the concrete than with the wood. But what you get at the end of all this is so vastly, vastly different.
Right, because we're not talking about double, I mean, we're just talking about a better product at a slightly increased margin of cost. One thing that you do have to think about, our window wells are deep. So, our walls are 12 inches thick. So our window wells are 10 inches deep. 9 to 10 inches deep.
Yeah, depending on your window.
I mean, I like it. I think it's really cool, but you need to upsize your windows. Because if you have small, narrow windows, I think it's going to look really crazy.
It can. If your window is a 2x3 or something like that, it feels smaller because of the depth. Now, there's different ways you could, you can mount your window on the outside of the house where it comes in, or you can mount your window maybe in the middle or in the inside, where that window well is either shown on the outside or the inside. So a little bit of design on the front end will capture all of these. So it's just a thought that your wall is a little bit thicker than traditional. So your doors, your casement for your doors will have to be thicker. So either you can have that, you do it yourself and put the, the jam extenders on it, or have it done, or, have that done.
Yeah, so we had to have all of our doors custom hung because it's deeper, right?
Yes.
So it's not standard.
Yes.
So we had to have them, which is no big deal. I mean, if you're building a new house, you probably have custom doors anyway.
Yeah.
But, we would buy our doors just as slabs, and then we would take them and have them custom hung for us.
It was so much easier. I'm sure there's enough of you guys that were like, well, I can hang my own door. I can do that.
Sure.
I could too, but the fact is, if you take it to a place that is a door company, they have all the jigs, they have all the pieces set up, and they can do it so much faster. And so
we looked at it, believe me.
Oh yeah, we looked at it. I mean, it did cost a little bit more on the front end, but it works. Your doors come in and you know the exact sizes.
Yeah. And then one of the other things was the sheer thickness of the walls being a foot. It does take up square footage.
It does.
I mean, that's a real thing. If you're looking at your 20 by 52 space, what you really have is 50 by 20.
Yeah, I mean, each wall on the outside is a foot, so any given room, it's actually 2 feet, when you take the full dimensions. It doesn't, if your house is bigger, let's say our house was 5,000 square feet, it wouldn't be as noticeable.
Right.
But front to back of 26, but it actually is 24, and, and then the width of 50 to 48. 50 to 48 we don't quite see, but 24, when your measurements are smaller, it shows up more. So you'll just have to take that into account. And we did. We just took a little extra time to think, okay, this is a 1 foot, it's like 11 3/4, whatever. So I just drew it as 12 inch, right? As 1 foot thick all the way around.
Right.
And then make your dimensions from that.
Perfect. So let's do a quick summary, because
Sure.
why not? If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and please feel free to comment any questions or comments that you may have down below. To sum up, our strengths are the strength, right? So the pros are how strong the house is.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
The quietness, I'm telling you guys how unbelievably quiet is, how
Love
peaceful
it.
when you go to sleep. It just is so quiet. It's wonderful.
Yep. Which is also comfortable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Quiet is part of that, but also just the air quality with the ERV, bringing in and circulating fresh air for us all the time, the Mr. Cool systems, the humidity, the constant kind of humidity level in the home.
Yep.
Very comfortable home.
Absolutely.
Efficient.
Yes. I'm telling you, if you
Cha-ching.
if you live in the states of where your electric bills are noticeably higher, then build more efficient, where you're using less of that given commodity.
And both ways. I mean, I'm just thinking like Arizona to Alaska, right?
Yeah.
Like anywhere you have those kinds of extremes.
Yep.
An ICF home is going to be perfect for you.
Well, when you think about it, Florida with hurricanes, it's just not much different than tornadoes with here, right? I mean, I'm still like, why is this not the go-to? But
yeah, why is this not the traditional building?
it's new. It's new in the market, right?
Yeah, new for 40 years.
Yeah.
That's how construction is.
True.
We have 2 times as many places along all of the walls to hang things than studs, right? Because we're set 8 inches on center.
Yep.
They're set 16 inches. It allowed us to do the suspended garage floor and the suspended roof, just because the walls are so strong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And no load-bearing walls.
None. I mean, you could literally make it where you could move your walls around inside your house.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't want to do that downstairs because we have the radiant floor heating and the concrete, right? But
we could.
But we could. I mean, I guess you could glue the wood, to the floor versus, anchoring it to the floor. Exactly.
And then for our cons, ICF is marginally more expensive than wood, or can be, or could be, depending on where you're at in the country, how much the wood is, if you're doing 2x6 walls, 2x8 walls.
Yep.
I mean, it could be more expensive.
It could.
It doesn't bother us because I think it's a better product.
It's vastly.
I just think it's a better product.
It is, absolutely.
It can be hard to find ICF builders.
Yes. Now, when you say that, though, we have some close friends, and this has been, 20 years ago now. They did the research themselves, They followed all the details and all the directions, and they poured their own ICF house.
That's right. They're really out in the middle of nowhere,
Yep.
panhandle of Oklahoma,
Yep.
very remote. And they ordered the block, stacked the block themselves.
Absolutely.
Worked with the concrete company to try to find a slump
Yep.
that would work
Yep.
For the concrete pour. And I remember he said his first pour, it was a little too slumpy. It was like a little too wet.
Yep.
So then they learned from that. And then when they poured the second story, they knew, okay, we need to beef up the concrete so that it's not quite so wet.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah.
And they did it themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not, what I'm trying to say, it's that it's not a deal killer. And if you just do a little research on it, what you get on the back end is just so much better. No one ever thought, no one, in my opinion, is like, I just remember it took that long. But 5 years later, you don't really quite remember that it took a little bit longer.
Right.
What you remember is when you walk in, you're like, oh, it feels nice in here. It's quiet in here. I feel safe when a storm comes up. I don't have to worry about, any of these problems that you have with traditional stick-built homes.
Exactly. So if you can't find a builder, think about doing it on your own, because we know people who have.
Absolutely.
Think about planning. So think about your space's interior, because you are going to lose that foot on each wall, right? So think about how big do your rooms really need to be, because you're going to lose some from the footprint. And then also with that, think about your window and door openings, because you're going to have to accommodate for those deep walls with whatever you feel comfortable with. Definitely the doors are going to have to go through, whether you build them or somebody else builds them, that jam's going to need to be extended.
Now, this only occurs on your exterior.
Right.
Unless you do some sort of suspended where we had to. So we have one door that's interior that has jam extensions. It's just the exterior part of the building.
That's right.
Okay.
So that's it.
I think so. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And make sure to like and subscribe. And there's more to come.
More to come. We'll see you next time. Bye.
One shot.
One
take.
shot. One take.